Imagine you're scrolling through YouTube, and your best friend just told you they want to jump into modern PC gaming but they've never built a rig before. They're nervous about dropping a few $100 on something that might end up sitting idle because it can't keep up with the games they love, or because it turns out to be a pain to set up. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. That's where the MXZ gaming PC with an AMD Ryzen 7 5700X3D and an RTX 4060 comes into play. It's marketed as a ready-to-play desktop that promises high-end performance without the hassle of picking individual components. The first thing most of us worry about is whether a pre-built will actually deliver the kind of smooth frame rates we see in benchmark videos. The 5700X3D is a processor that's built around AMD's 3D V-cache technology, which essentially adds a layer of extra cache on top of the chip. In real-world terms, that translates to noticeably better performance in CPU-heavy games like Cyberpunk 2077 or Elden Ring, where you can often see a 1015% bump in average FPS compared to a standard Ryzen 7 5800X. Pair that with an RTX 4060, and you have a GPU that comfortably handles 1080p and even 1440p gaming at high settings in most modern titles. If you're the kind of player who wants to dive straight into Fortnite tournaments or explore massive open worlds without constantly tweaking settings, the hardware combo does the heavy lifting for you. Now, let's talk about the practical side of actually getting this machine up and running. The box arrives with Windows 11 Pro already installed, which means you won't need to hunt down drivers or spend an hour reinstalling the OS. The 1TB NVMe SSD is another win. It boots Windows in under 10 seconds and loads games like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2 in a flash. In everyday use, that speed shows up when you're swapping between a video editing program, a web browser full of tabs, and a game lobby. You'll notice the system staying responsive, something that can be a deal-breaker for people who use their PC for both work and play. One area that can catch people off guard with pre-built rigs is cooling and noise. This MXZ model comes with 6 RGB fans spread across the case, and they're positioned to push air through the front, over the CPU, and out the rear. In my test setup, the fans kept the CPU temperatures hovering in the low 60 SC under a full gaming load, which is perfectly fine for the 5700X3D's boost clocks. The downside? The sheer number of fans, combined with a relatively thin side panel that's all glass, means you'll hear a constant whir, especially when the GPU spikes during intense moments. If you're planning on a silent bedroom setup, you might need to look into aftermarket fan curves or even swapping a couple of the fans for quieter models. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's a hidden trade-off that's worth noting before you buy. Power supply is another practical point. The machine includes a 600W80 Plus certified unit, which comfortably covers the RTX 4060's draw plus a bit of headroom for future upgrades. In practice, I was able to add a second 2TB SSD without tripping any power warnings, and the system stayed stable. However, if you're thinking about a massive GPU upgrade down the line, say moving to an RTX 4070 Ti or a higher-tier card, the 600W might start to feel tight. In that scenario, you'd either have to replace the PSU or accept that you won't be able to push the absolute top-end performance without modifications. Let's get to who should actually consider this rig. First, gamers who want a solid out-of-the-box experience without fiddling with BIOS settings or cable management will love the convenience. The pre-installed Windows 11 Pro, the SSD, and the fact that the system ships fully assembled make it ideal for students, young professionals, or anyone who just wants to plug in a monitor, a keyboard, and start playing. It's also a good fit for streamers who need a reliable CPU for encoding while the GPU handles the gameplay. The 5700X3D's extra cache gives you that extra headroom for smooth OBS performance. On the flip side, if you're a hardcore enthusiast who loves to overclock every component, tweak fan curves to the millisecond, or swap out the case for something with a more premium aesthetic, you might feel constrained. The case, while showcasing those 6 RGB fans, is fairly standard and doesn't offer much in the way of modular drive bays or toolless upgrades. Additionally, the RGB lighting, while eye-catching, can be a bit over the top for someone who prefers a more subdued workstation look. For those users, building a custom PC or buying a higher-end pre-built with a more flexible chassis could make more sense. Value is where the MXZ really tries to stand out. The price point, when you compare it to buying each component separately, is competitive. You're essentially paying for the convenience of assembly and the 1-year parts and labor warranty, plus the free lifetime tech support that the store advertises. In real terms,